This is 91.3 FM, WCW in Worcester, Massachusetts, the DR.Chris Radio of Horror program. And as part of our 10th anniversary here on Radio of Horror, and hopefully you're listening to us live. If not, you're listening to us recorded and it's playing on YouTube and VidMe. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on our channel. As part of our 10th anniversary, I wanted to delve into some comic books that are not horror related so much, that have horror elements in them. And one character in particular that I've always loved delving into the horror industry sometimes, because it's a true challenge for him, is Superman. And what better person to have on the phone with us to talk about the Man of Steel versus demons and vampires and other horror elements than is the editor of the Superman comic books post-Crisis and current DC animated head guru guy, who'll give his proper title, Mike Carlin. Thank you for coming on the show with us, Mike.
How you doing, Chris? Everything's cool here in sunny Burbank.
Awesome. Now, what is your official title as part of DC Animation?
My title these days is Creative Director for Animation.
Okay.
At DC Entertainment.
And I have helped contribute to that in so many ways with buying the DVDs and Blu-rays of your many, many films, from Superman Doomsday up till Batman vs. Two-Face.
Thank you for paying my salary for many, many years.
Superman fighting supernatural elements. I mean, that is something really, really cool, because Superman can be hurt by magic, but where did the idea to really do it a lot more in the post-Crisis era? Where did that all come from?
Well, it came from the need to not have every story revolve around kryptonite. We do need to give Superman challenges, and we need to give him things that he can overcome, so that's what makes him a hero. And it really just was fun to kind of change the pitch, throw out some other stuff, and because of the way we were doing the books back in the day, one thing kind of led to another, so that when we created a new character, like, say, Blaze, tying her then later to Satanas, who was an established Superman villain, was kind of fun for us, because we got to show that we are reverential to the history of Superman while we're trying to do some new stuff as well.
Let's start there with Blaze, because I think in the post-Crisis era, Blaze was the Soul Search storyline, other than the one annual with Art Adams, the amazing artwork by Art Adams, who I got to meet, and he signed my copy of Action Comics Annual #1. I told him that this is one of my favorite vampire stories ever in comic books that's not a vampire-centered story. And by that I mean it's not American Vampire, it's not 30 Days of Night, but it's a vampire-centered story. And he was, he was very humble, but he was definitely very appreciative of hearing that. But we'll get to vampires in a second. This character, Blaze, is so reminding me of a movie called Dark Angel. It's a Dark Moon production. Do you know that company?
Yeah.
Yes. So there's a movie called Dark Angel, where she's like a sexy demoness type of character. Was that movie out yet when you created Blaze?
Gee, I have no idea. I mean, what year is Blaze from?
I've got the book right here in my hand. It is 1990.
1990.
Yeah, so
I have
Blaze.
no idea when the movie came out.
Okay, I believe that was around the same time.
It might have been. Part of the inspiration for this story was to have that old church turned into a nightclub thing was actually a real thing in New York.
Oh,
so
cool.
We kind of got that from there. There was I forget the name of it now. It was an old church that they converted into a nightclub, and we kind of got our idea from that. And we always, definitely wanted to have, more female characters, not just antagonists, but we tried to pepper the show with a lot more diversity than just, here's Perry, Jimmy, and Clark, and only Lois.
I recently wrote up a review of Soul Search for my website, radiohorror.wordpress.com, and I gave major props to all the horror elements, and I kind of skimmed over the whole. And then there's this soap opera drama plotline involving Lex Luthor, the son of Jerry being the real son of Lex Luthor, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the fun of spoiler alert, getting to kill Jerry White in this story. It was because basically it was kind of like us being able to kill a little bit of Lex Luthor, which was kind of fun.
But the big draw for me was Superman fighting demons in hell, and it's like, why didn't they do this on the Superman animated series? Or, something like Lois and Clark. I don't think they would ever throw Blaze on there in her demonic form, but they could have, like, the horns maybe coming out of her head and, like, flames around Superman. That would have been really cool to see, even on a low-budget show like that.
Well, if the Superman animated show had lasted a little longer, they definitely would have gotten to some of these things. I can't imagine. I mean, you have to go to magic every now and then with Superman, just because it is one of his very few limitations. Part of what I liked about this era, too, was the idea that, we could rip Superman's cape, we could scratch his, through his aura, and damage him with the magic characters, and just having his cape ripped and the one cover where he's rolling up his sleeves, it's just like, it's a Superman you never saw before. And it was like a great way to show just how big a thing he was up against. It's like if his cape was still invulnerable like it was in the old days, there's just no visual way to show that he's been through the ringer. And we really felt pretty strongly that just being able to damage him a little bit, whether it was magic or a nuclear bomb, it just shows that he went through something. Otherwise, he was just always squeaky clean and kind of like a cartoon hero rather than somebody who we could empathize with and maybe actually worry about.
I also got my earliest memory of this story, sticking with Soul Search right this second, and then we'll run right into a Blaze Satanis, is as a child, I remember seeing these comic books, and I remember never ever wanting to buy them or read them because Blaze terrified me with that demonic grin on her face. No lips, just teeth.
Yeah.
It scared the shit out of me.
She's a great looking character.
Yeah, and then as an adult, I started getting into Hellraiser and all sorts of interesting extracurricular activities, being a horror host and a full-grown man, that I look at Blaze and go, damn, I wish my girlfriend cosplays that.
Send pictures.
Yeah, I will, if she does. She's actually going to be dressing up as Black Canary for me at Rhode Island Comic Con coming up. Yeah. Going over to the Blaze Satanis War, out of the 4 parts to it, and, I think everyone's got their favorite Superman artist. Tom Grummett, during this time, was my favorite, just behind Dan Jurgens. And his Satanis, when he's standing there, he's only in, 2 panels, really, but he's standing next to a secretary or something. Yeah, a woman who's like, give me a major break. I mean, I've heard that things like this do happen, but only on Unsolved Mysteries. And he's just standing there with half his body in the portal. It looks so badass.
Fun. And don't forget that Jimmy Olsen got to be the Turtle Boy in this story as well, so it's very important.
That was that's a holdover from the Silver Age, which I never ever really read too much.
It's worth it. Hunt it down. It's really fun.
As the editor of these books, do you have a lot of say in how the paneling's going to go? Because at the end of the first part, the Blaze Satanis War, it's a crooked panel as Superman's about to fight Satanis, not knowing that they're kind of on the same side, and Blaze is just looking up at them from hell.
Yeah, no, that would be Tom's doing.
Okay.
From based on the script that he was given. So yeah, and the thing is, what the editors is, if something isn't working, we can say, hey, can you maybe adjust whatever? And it was great. It is kind of, it's like symbolic. She's in hell, under the ground, looking up at her brother and Superman duking it out with a guy in a bow tie nearby, so that's good. It's all in perspective.
Running into vampires, the 2-part that was done with Man of Steel and Superman, the adjective-less Superman, with Robin in both parts, the cover strikes me as one of my favorite horror covers of all time, with Lucy I believe that's Lucy, right? The Lois's sister, who's a vampire.
Yep.
Okay, and she's like bitten into Superman's neck, and she's got the blood, and
Yeah, it was a fun thing, and it's like these two issues led right into the Blaze Satanis War. So this was all, this was like a 6-7 issue run.
Yeah, with Fosgoyle.
Yes, Foswell. Yeah, he was our human pawn who was being taken over by Blaze and/or Satanis as the story went on.
The other best appearance of Blaze, which I thought was really great, is spoiler: Superman dies. It comes back to life. In Action Comics, no, Adventures of Superman number 500. When Jonathan Kent is trying to find the soul of his son, he meets Blaze. I was like enamored by that whole scene. It's just so well done. It's just like great little horror element in the middle of a truly touching, soul-searching, no pun intended, story.
Well, I mean, obviously the reason to do that is to actually, if you were a Superman reader in that era, you saw that if he's seen Blaze, he's close to being really dead and staying that way. So it was kind of like a little bit of Superman, you've got to do something to get your father out of this soon. So yeah, that was kind of like a little bit of a greatest hits thing. I mean, Kismet shows up in that story as well.
Yeah.
It really was again a fun era. I mean, this is all right before the death of Superman. All this stuff a couple of months before.
Yeah, the Blaze Satanis War, I mean, is literally the summer just before you guys decide, in your right. famous meeting, let's kill him.
Yes, this is the 25th anniversary of all these horror stories too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was another reason why I was like, I want to do something different this year. It's my 10th anniversary show, and I do cover comics, but who do I not cover that often? Oh, Superman, because he's not a horror guy, but he's had horror stories. So here we go. And then the other reason, what? Go ahead.
It's definitely fun to look back at this stuff, and honestly, I was a little happy that it wasn't just going to be a discussion of the death of Superman, which is pretty much all I ever get interviewed about.
Oh no, I wanted to go into the horror stuff and whatever. Before, I mean, we will at the end. I hope to get a few words about the death of Superman, just because it is the 25th anniversary. Now, how long were you the editor of the Superman books for? Because I don't want to go too far into it, and then you go, wait, I didn't do that.
Well, about 10 years, I guess, from 86 to 95-ish.
So right around the wedding?
Yeah, I left right before the wedding, but I kind of came back to do that wedding special since you know the story of the death of Superman, right?
Yeah. I watched the bonus material on that DVD.
Yeah, that was a great documentary. Basically we were planning to get them married, so we had plotted out the whole wedding.
Yep.
And then we said, well, there's this TV show coming on, and it wasn't the TV show that stopped us. It was me at Con saying, why don't we hold off on the wedding? If the TV show's a success, we could do the wedding at the same time that they do it on the TV show.
Okay,
if the show goes away, we can just do it anytime we want. So let's hold off on that, and then we came to the let's just kill him joke and running with that. Then the reality was that the TV show started writing and plotting the wedding, and they didn't tell us. So at the last minute, when we found out about it, we had no regular Superman books to fit the story into, so we did a special where we used all the old charts that we had thrown away to do that story. And so we didn't lose the death of Superman. I mean, the wedding of Superman, because of the death of Superman, it just got pushed back. And all the guys who were worried that they might not still be on the books when we got to the wedding, they were all part of it. And we even, we brought in, John Byrne came back to do some stuff, and it was like everybody. I even had some Kurt Swan inventory before he passed away that we managed to get in there. So we really did kind of want everybody to be involved in that story.
Backing up just a bit, because this was around the time that you were on the book. After the Superman and Robin vampire double team up, couldn't think of any other way to call it, you did another vampire story involving something in Man of Steel, right?
I don't know. Remind me.
I don't have the books, and I haven't read them because I don't own them, so I'm still kind of tracking them down.
Right.
But there was like
Man of
Jimmy.
Steel was part 2
What was that?
of that Robin. The Man of Steel issue was part 2 of that Robin story.
No, Man of Steel was part 1. Superman was part 2. Because then Superman led right into the Blaze Satanis War.
Okay.
But then afterwards, after the death, after the return, after, I want to say just before 0 Hour, there was another vampire story involving Jimmy and a rock star, I think.
Oh, that sounds familiar. Yeah, I don't remember it off the top of my head though.
Yeah, I don't have the books, unfortunately.
The thing is, vampires are they're a good go-to. You don't have to do a whole lot of setup. Everybody knows what a vampire is. Nowadays they'd be zombies because everybody knows what a zombie is, and it's just it was a good kind of shorthand monster villain that we could get to, and that way we didn't have to spend a lot of time doing setup or origin because everybody knows how you become a vampire.
Definitely. After we got done talking in a couple days, I'm actually going to be talking with having somebody on the show from the Superman homepage for a very similar kind of discussion, but from the fans' perspective, whereas, you are somebody who worked on the books. This is going to be like two fans talking about it.
That's fun.
So maybe they'll remember what books I'm talking about when I reference the second vampire story, because it's like the images are in my head.
I'm sure they will, and because the fans, thank God for the fans and the internet. I don't know how we did these books without the internet, I gotta tell you. Because we get a lot of help from everybody out there nowadays.
Like later on, they did like a Batman Nosferatu story where it was Superman was in it, and it was very much like a black and white silent film.
Yeah, there was in the Man of Steel issue. There's a Nosferatu thing, the Robin story, Night of the Bat. There's some Bela Lugosi in there. There's some Nosferatu in there. So it's not quite a black and white thing, but we did do an Elseworld, Batman Nosferatu Elseworld that tied in with the Superman Metropolis Elseworld.
Yes. Okay. So I was trying, because I only have the Batman issue Nosferatu. I didn't realize that was also a tie into the other one, which I've seen before.
Part of the same universe. Yeah, it was part of the same universe, and then there was a Wonder Woman one as well.
That's really cool.
It was fun. I really like doing those.
Yeah,
it's a great way to pay homage to movies that we all knew and loved.
Yeah, if you have any great, if you have a great story about working on them, please enlighten us.
Well, the only great story is I got to work with an artist who was much more unusual for superhero stories, and that was Ted Mckeever.
Yes.
And he really brought a different level, and the first two books were painted, so they just really felt like they were from another world. They felt like Elseworlds. They felt different. And he is really just a phenomenal impressionistic artist. And that, to me, actually fit the look of the silent movies and German expressionism and all that, and he really had that stuff down. I definitely think he's kind of an underrated artist. Because he's not mainstream. He's not mainstream.
That was the word I was looking for, German expressionism. That always escapes me when I'm trying to describe silent films until someone else says it. German expressionism is exactly the way I would describe that Batman and Superman silent film.
Yeah, definitely. That was a fun project.
Yeah, as much as it reminds me of Nosferatu, the styling of his art also reminds me of the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Exactly. That's that expressionism. And he's just he's a great designer and composer of panels, and he really is just a great artist.
Speaking of Elseworlds, you are going to be working on one of the, considered to be the first original Elseworlds story coming up soon on DVD or Blu-ray next year, right?
That's true. It's actually all done and it's ready to go. That's Gotham by Gaslight is going to be an animated feature next year.
Yes. And what's the release date of that?
February, I want to say. Yeah.
Okay.
Beginning of February.
That is by Mike Mignola. The comic book was by Mike Mignola, the creator of Hellboy, tying it back into horror. And
yes.
This movie looks like it's going to be a combination of the Gotham by Gaslight plus the sequel.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because to do a 72-minute movie and base it on just a 48-page story is just not enough material.
No.
So we definitely needed to.
I mean, come on, you were able to do a 70-minute movie based on 3 years worth of Superman comic books.
It's true. We're going to do that again, too.
Yeah, I was very happy to hear about that from San Diego Comic-Con, and I know we've talked on Facebook, you cannot say anything about it, but I am more than happy. I am so happy that the Death and Return of Superman is being done the correct way as a DC animated feature.
I caution everybody to know that it is not going to be a direct adaptation, because a lot of the stuff that was going on in the DC universe at that time would be hard to explain to a casual viewer. So there's not going to be any putty Supergirl. There's no
putty Supergirl.
Lex Luthor's not a clone of his father or any of that stuff. So we do some winks and nods to a lot of that stuff, but it really is. We did have to kind of streamline it to get to continuity that we're doing in our movies, because 2 movies a year actually fit together as a straight continuity. You don't need to have seen the earlier stuff, but if you have, you can actually see the world building going on.
Yeah, and
it's really fun.
I'm assuming movie 1 will be the death and funeral, and movie 2 will be the reign of the Supermen with the 4 Supermen, the Cyborg, Steel, Superboy, and the Eradicator.
That's a good assumption.
That's a good assumption that you're not allowed to comment on. I understand.
By doing a story like that, we're actually adding characters to the continued DC animated universe, so that'll open up more stories down the road too.
Definitely. Oh, just before we let you go, because I kind of skipped over it, even though I did briefly mention having met the artist, that Action Comics annual, which I believe was annual number 1, by Art Adams.
Yep. And John Byrne wrote it.
Yeah. That is, as far as I can remember, in comic books. Now, it was exposed to vampires through, movies, like The Lost Boys. But in comic books, I think that was the first ever vampire story I ever read.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that goes to the famous saying, every comic book is somebody's first, and every vampire story is somebody's first. So that's very cool.
It's also, did you ever watch the Real Ghostbusters cartoon?
I guess I did back then, yeah.
There's an episode of the Real Ghostbusters that has a kind of a similar plot line about needing help in a town that's got vampires, and then but in the Real Ghostbusters cartoon, the Ghostbusters find out the people that are recruiting them to help them are actually werewolves.
That's funny. That's a Twilight story.
Yeah.
So, well, the thing I liked about this story was it was an unusual setting because it was in the South, and the bayou kind of country. The innocent girl turns out to not be so innocent at the end of the story, and that's really awesome. It felt a little like True Blood even before there was a True Blood.
Yeah, you're right, because it was the South.
But it really was that same kind of thing with the small town people and their just superstitious fears coming to life, which was really fun to notice when I went back and looked at it today.
I also, I would be remiss if I didn't do this for my partner on a project I do. I work on a LGBTQ project. We've turned somebody's graphic novel into an audiobook, if you've ever heard of Sunstone, by Image Comics. And my partner on the project, herself being a lesbian, is the audio reader of it. And we're both huge fans of Maggie Sawyer, and she came out of your era of Superman.
Yeah, she was actually in the first issue that had my name on it.
Issue Superman number 4.
Number 4.
Yep. Did you guys always have the idea that she would be a lesbian, even if you didn't just come out and say it right away?
Yeah, the point was to not come out and say it. The point was to just have her be a great cop, and she was. And the fact that she's ended up on Saturday morning cartoons is a thrill to me, because people don't know. And that's the way the real world should operate. You don't need to know stuff like that. Is somebody competent at their job? Are they somebody you can count on? That's what she is.
And now she's on Supergirl.
Yep, she's now on Supergirl, which is very friendly for the lesbian and gay community.
Absolutely. I mean, eventually you did do the story. It was Metropolis Crimes Unit, right? That it was a miniseries that exposes her as a lesbian.
Yeah. Well, she was always. It was always there that she was a lesbian. She had girlfriends when they had that Skyhook adventure. You saw that she had a child, but had moved on to a relationship with, I think, Toby Raines, who was a reporter. And, so it was never, we just didn't make stories about it. It was just there. And that kind when she got that miniseries thing, it wasn't so much about it, and it had one of my favorite scenes in there. That was written by Cindy Goff and drawn by Peter Krause, I believe. And this crazy old evil scientist is trying to create a biodome, and he's going to do an Adam and Eve, and he takes Maggie Sawyer in there with him, and he's like, now we're going to repopulate the world. And she just has a line where she's rolling up her sleeves and saying something like, boy, do you have the wrong lady. And it was just a great bit, and then she kicks his ass.
I would have to say that in the 90s, I mean, Maggie was created in the late, like, the 80s, obviously, because that issue came out in
86 or 87.
Yeah, but in the 80s and 90s, lesbians and gays were written as, like, they're gay! They're a lesbian!
Yeah.
Let's make that a freaking point! Like, not Dharma and Greg, Will and Grace, which has come back, and whatever. But you guys wrote her as, like, just a character, a cop, and yes, there are hints that she has a relationship, but it wasn't like oh my god, we gotta make this a special issue of Superman where we talk about my two moms.
Nope, it really was, it was our intention right from the start, just to not make that the point of her life. It was a part of her life, but it wasn't the point of her life. The point of her life was to be a great cop for Metropolis. Again,
memory is fleeting, as Mark Hamill said in his great little, Joker voice. And one day, I think it was like a Star Wars thing. He was reading some Joker lines. Memory is fleeting, but as far back as I can remember, I swear to God, and I've said this to my partner on Sunstone, that I think Maggie was my first ever exposure to a woman who's a lesbian in any way, even if it is fiction. And I think that's always made me never think of gay and lesbians as secondary people or being derogatory towards them or in any way that would make me homophobic, because I just kind of read it and was like, oh, okay, she's a cop. Oh, great, all right.
Yeah, well, she's part of the tapestry. She's just another piece of the reality of the world. And it's like, we're dealing with flying people and demons and vampires, but there's real people in these stories who are the people who get affected by these stories, and they're the reason that Superman has to do what he does, and he doesn't discriminate, and he will save everybody. And that's what the regular people are there for.
Yeah, and I thought that was great, because I latched onto that, as many people who are straight like myself who did, and read Superman and go, well, Superman accepts Maggie, I should accept Maggie, even if that's the lesson I need to learn.
Well, that's why Superman does the right thing all the time.
Exactly. Just before we let you go, do you have anything you want to say about the death of Superman? Maybe that you haven't already said already, because it is the 25th anniversary. It is probably the story that got me heavily involved in Superman from then forward.
Thank you again for that, because that paid my salary for a lot of years. Basically, I mean, that's also a monster story. I mean, Doomsday is a monster. He's not supernatural. He's more science fiction-y, but he is still a monster.
And what a tragic backstory too.
Oh yeah, you can't blame him.
No.
For being so mad.
No. I mean, yes, it's made into a. Sorry, go ahead.
His origin is pretty rough.
Yeah, I mean, I love the different interpretations we've gotten of his origin, from like Justice League to the Superman Doomsday to even Max Landis's parody.
Which I love. I love that. I sent him a note on Facebook when that came out, which I don't think he's on Facebook anymore.
You know what would be even better?
Now he's a thing.
You know what would be even better is that in the conference room while you all are talking about Superman, if you all were wearing devil horns in his video. Let's kill him!
Yeah, that's exactly what it was like.
Doomsday could be like its own movie. His origin story could be its own like theatrical film unto itself.
I guess so. I mean, it would be tough to say, what the draw to the general public would be, unless Tom Cruise is playing Doomsday.
Oh my God! Don't ever say that again.
Everybody wants to see that. All right, Nicolas Cage playing Doomsday.
What? You didn't think Michael Shannon played a good Doomsday recently? I'm not going to get into that discussion.
No comment till the time limit is up.
Mike, we need you to sign this affidavit that you're not going to comment about anything that's happening in the Superman television series or movie series until we switch over to a different storyline.
The beauty of all the TV and movie stuff is that I am literally not in that loop, and I don't know what they're planning to do. And I want to keep it that way, because that way when something leaks out, it's not my fault. I I stick to the animated world.
Mike, I really appreciate you coming on and all the hard work that you've done with Superman over the years, and as well as the DC animated films. I own most of them. There's a couple I probably won't watch, and there's a couple I probably just haven't gotten around to yet. But I own, I'd say, about 90% of them on DVD or Blu-ray, because I love physical media.
We don't expect anybody to buy them all or like them all, but we do like that they're out there so that everybody can pick and choose what they do like. There is a 10th anniversary box set coming out of all of the movies that were done from Doomsday in 2007 up until Batman and Harley Quinn in 2017. So if you are somebody who's listening and you don't have any of these things, if you go to Amazon, the 10th anniversary of the DC Universe is a pretty good deal. It's like $200 for 30 movies. I can't even believe we've done 30 movies in 10 years, but we have.
Yeah, I mean, God, Hollywood has only been able to crank out 2 Superman movies in 10 years.
Well, I gotta give all the credit to Warner Brothers Animation, the people I am a liaison with. They do all the hard work. They do all the hiring of writers and artists and tracking deadlines and making sure everything comes back at a great quality level. They are amazing at Warner Brothers Animation. They will never let us down, and they love our characters as much as we do. So it's a real pleasure working with them.
Where can people find you on social media if they ever want to leave you a comment or a question about Superman?
Well, Facebook is where I generally am.
Do you have a private fan page or something?
No.
Okay.
I'm just a guy.
Okay.
Be nice.
Yeah, just be nice. You can send Mike Carlin an email, and he will respond and answer your questions about Superman, as long as it's nothing to do with anything current that he is under contract not to talk about.
Time, as long as there's time to do it. You know, if 500 requests come after your podcast is out there, it might take a while.
We'll see it. We'll see how that goes. Mike, we really appreciate you talking with us about vampires, demons, a little bit about Doomsday. We didn't want to hanker on it so much because I know you've probably been bombarded with tons of interviews about it, but as well as the Maggie Sawyer thing, just because I am involved in an LGBT project, I wanted to bring that up. So we appreciate you mentioning that.
I'm always happy to talk about Maggie. I'm going to be at a convention in Mexico City, November 3rd through the 5th.
Okay.
So that is a 25th anniversary of Doomsday. Dan Jurgens and Brett Breeding are going to be there.
Wow.
John Bogdanov. It's going to be really cool.
Awesome. I hope you guys have a panel or something that we can probably watch on YouTube afterwards if we can't go.
I don't know if they're broadcasting the stuff. I mean, it would be in Spanish probably.
Oh, Mexico City, Mexico. Okay. Are you guys also doing charity work for the earthquake disaster?
I assume there's going to be some of that. There's they are selling a Death of Superman package that of stuff that they've created that I believe is going to benefit the earthquake victims.
And what better way to benefit people than with Superman stuff, because Superman gives all his to charity, as Bibbo, one of our favorite characters, would say.
He's my favorite.
Mike, again, thank you so much for coming on the show with us.
Thanks for showing an interest in our old comic books. They're really fun.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They're fun to make. They're fun to look back on. It was really cool to go into my collection and pull out these issues.
And have a happy Halloween.